A poor girl's kindness leads to a billionaire's love, an unbelievable twist. Welcome to Mr. Carter's Stories. Hey, wonderful souls! Thank you for being here and joining me on this journey of love, emotions, and unforgettable stories. Every story I share is crafted with heart and passion to inspire, move, and warm your soul. Your support means the world to me. Every like, comment, and share helps keep these beautiful stories alive. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a heartfelt tale. Together, let's spread love, kindness, and the magic of storytelling. Sparkles. The city buzzed with life. Cars honking, neon lights flickering, people rushing by with their own worries, their own destinations. Amidst the chaos, a young woman moved through the crowded streets with quiet determination. Emma Carter, barely in her early 20s, had already faced more struggles than most people experience in a lifetime. She pulled her thin coat tighter around her small frame, shielding herself from the harsh winter wind. Her boots, worn and slightly torn, crunched against the wet pavement as she made her way to a tiny bakery on the corner. It was one of the few places in the city where the owner, a kind old man named Mr. Harris, would sometimes give her leftover bread when the day ended. Emma had grown up in this city, but not in its warm embrace. Orphaned at the age of 10, she had lost both parents to a tragic car accident. With no relatives willing to take her in, she had been shuffled through foster homes, some kind, some cruel. By the time she turned 18, she was on her own, with nothing but a suitcase full of secondhand clothes and a heart full of resilience. Despite her struggles, Emma never let life harden her heart. She worked tirelessly, scrubbing floors at a small diner, washing dishes in a cafe, and running errands for people too busy to do them themselves. The pay was barely enough to cover the rent for the tiny one-room apartment she called home. The walls were cracked, the heater barely worked, but it was hers, and that was enough. Yet, even with so little, Emma always found ways to help others. She stopped outside the bakery and saw Mrs. Porter, an elderly woman who lived a few blocks away, struggling with her grocery bags. Without hesitation, Emma rushed over. "Let me help you with that, Mrs. Porter," she said, taking the heavier bags from the frail woman's arms. "Oh, Emma, you're such a dear." Mrs. Porter sighed in relief. "You always seem to appear at just the right moment." Emma smiled, walking alongside her, not minding the extra weight. She had seen Mrs. Porter struggle too many times, and even though Emma herself had barely enough to eat, she had never turned a blind eye to those who needed help. As they reached Mrs. Porter's small apartment, the old woman patted Emma's hand. "I don't have much, dear, but I baked some cookies today. Why don't you take a few?" Emma hesitated. She didn't want to take food from someone who had little, but Mrs. Porter pressed a small bag of warm cookies into her hand, smiling kindly. "You remind me of my granddaughter," she said softly. "She used to help people just like you do." Emma swallowed the lump in her throat. "Thank you, Mrs. Porter." She left with the cookies tucked safely in her coat pocket, her heart warmed more by the kindness than by the food itself. That night she sat by the window of her apartment, watching the city lights twinkle like distant stars. She had nothing, no family, no savings, no luxury, but she had kindness. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough to keep her going. Little did she know, fate was about to test her kindness in a way she had never imagined. And in return, it would lead her to a love she never thought she deserved. The sky rumbled like a beast growling in pain, and the first droplets of rain fell onto the cracked pavement of the city streets. Emma pulled her coat tightly around herself, the thin fabric doing little to shield her from the icy wind. It was another long day. Another exhausting shift at the cafe where she worked. She hurried down the alley, her usual shortcut home, when a sudden flash of lightning illuminated the darkness. That's when she saw him. A man lay crumpled near the edge of the sidewalk, his body barely visible under the dim glow of the flickering street lamp. His clothes were soaked, torn in places, and his face was partially obscured by his damp, tousled hair. He wasn't moving. Emma's breath caught in her throat. People walked past him, barely sparing a glance, just another lost soul in the cold heart of the city. But Emma had never been one to turn a blind eye to someone in need. She rushed forward, kneeling beside him, her fingers trembling as she touched his shoulder. "Sir?" she called gently, shaking him slightly. "Are you okay?" No response. Her heart pounded as she noticed the bruises on his face, the way his lip was split and the slight trickle of blood from his forehead. Had he been attacked? Robbed? "Hey, can you hear me?" She tried again, this time more urgent. A low groan escaped his lips. His eyelids fluttered open, revealing deep, stormy gray eyes that seemed lost in confusion. "Help!" he rasped before his head slumped back down. Emma didn't think twice. She wasn't sure who he was, why he was there, or what had happened to him. All she knew was that she couldn't leave him there. With all the strength she could muster, she hooked her arms under his and tried to lift him. He was tall, much taller than her, and his body was heavy with unconsciousness. But she gritted her teeth and pushed forward, her kindness stronger than her exhaustion. The rain pounded harder as she half carried, half dragged him through the streets, her shoes slipping on the wet pavement. People stared but didn't help. It didn't matter. When she finally reached her small apartment, she struggled to unlock the door while keeping him upright. With one last effort, she pulled him inside and shut the door against the storm. Panting, she lowered him onto the thin mattress that served as her bed. His face, though bruised and weary, looked peaceful in the dim light of her small room. She hurried to grab a towel, gently dabbing away the blood and rainwater. "Who are you?" she whispered, more to herself than to him. She didn't expect an answer, and she didn't get one. But as she sat beside him, watching the rise and fall of his chest, she couldn't shake the feeling that this moment, this night, was about to change everything. A soft golden glow filtered through the tattered curtains of Emma's small apartment, casting delicate patterns across the wooden floor. The storm had passed, leaving behind the fresh scent of rain, but inside a different kind of stillness lingered. Emma sat on a rickety wooden chair beside the mattress, watching the man she had rescued. His breathing was steady now, his face no longer tight with pain. In the dim light of the previous night, she had barely taken in his features. Now she could see him clearly, his chiseled jawline, the faint stubble dusting his skin, the way his dark lashes contrasted against his bruised cheekbone. He was handsome, despite the exhaustion carved into his face. She sighed, standing up to check the damp cloth on his forehead. As she leaned over to adjust it, his body tensed. His eyes fluttered open, gray and stormy like the sky had been the night before. For a moment, silence stretched between them. Then confusion clouded his gaze. "Where am I?" he murmured, his voice rough from disuse. "You're safe," Emma reassured him, stepping back to give him space. "I found you unconscious on the street last night. You were hurt, so I brought you here." He blinked a few times, lifting a hand to his temple and wincing. I don't remember." Emma frowned. "What do you mean?" "I don't know who I am." His voice was barely above a whisper, filled with an uncertainty that made her heart ache. Emma's breath hitched. "Nothing at all?" He closed his eyes for a moment, brows furrowing in concentration. "Flashes," he admitted. "A car, pain, darkness, but no names, no faces." He met her gaze, frustration flickering beneath the surface. "Who am I?" Emma swallowed hard. She had expected injuries, maybe even fear, but not this. "You really don't know?" she asked softly. He shook his head. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Emma exhaled and offered a small, reassuring smile. "It's okay. Your memory will come back in time." He stared at her, something unreadable in his gaze. "Why did you help me?" Emma hesitated before answering. "Because you needed someone to." The honesty in her words made his throat tighten. How long had it been since he'd encountered kindness like this? He didn't know. He didn't know anything. She handed him a bowl of warm soup, something simple she had managed to make with the little she had. "Eat," she urged. "You need strength." He hesitated, then took the bowl, his fingers brushing against hers. A strange warmth spread through him, not just from the food, but from her presence. As the days passed, Emma cared for him without expecting anything in return. She shared what little food she had, bandaged his wounds, and talked to him, trying to help him recall even a piece of his past. And he, in turn, found himself drawn to her. There was something about her, something pure, something that made him feel safe. She was struggling, that much was clear. The way she saved the last bit of bread for him, the way she hesitated before eating, told him that she had nothing. Yet she still gave. She had nothing, and yet she had everything that mattered. One evening, as they sat in the small room, Emma handed him a shirt she had borrowed from a neighbor. He accepted it with a small smile. "You should have let me freeze," he joked lightly, attempting to bring humor to the heaviness in his heart. Emma scoffed. "And then what? Let the city turn even colder?" He chuckled softly, the sound unfamiliar even to himself. But as he looked at her, this girl who had nothing yet offered him the world, he felt something shift inside him. Whoever he had been before, whatever life he had left behind, none of it felt as important as the kindness of the woman sitting beside him. And for the first time since he had woken up, he wasn't just desperate to remember his past. He was afraid to leave the present he had found with her. The days stretched into weeks, and Liam found himself settling into the quiet rhythm of Emma's world, a world far removed from the chaos of the unknown past that haunted him. Though his memory remained a blur, he no longer felt completely lost. Emma had become his anchor. At first he had been restless, feeling useless as she went about her daily struggles. He had tried to insist she didn't need to take care of him, but she had simply shrugged and told him, "Everyone deserves kindness." But Liam wasn't content just being taken care of. He wanted to help. So he did. One morning, Emma woke to the sound of something clattering in the tiny kitchen. She rushed in, half expecting to see a broken plate or worse. Instead, she found Liam standing over the stove, frowning in concentration as he flipped something in a pan. "Are you cooking?" she asked, bewildered. He turned, offering a sheepish grin. "Well, I figured if I'm going to keep eating your food, I should at least try to contribute." Emma's lips twitched. "And what exactly are you contributing?" He motioned toward the pan, something that was supposed to be pancakes, but they're more like pancake-shaped disasters. Emma peered into the pan, suppressing a laugh at the lumpy, slightly burnt mess. A for effort. He placed a dramatic hand over his heart. "I'll take it." They ate together at the small wooden table, and though the food wasn't perfect, the warmth between them was undeniable. From that day on, Liam made it his mission to make Emma's life easier. He followed her to the cafe where she worked, insisting on helping her clean tables and carry heavy boxes. "I don't think you technically work here," Emma teased one afternoon as he wiped down a counter. "Well, I don't technically work anywhere," he shot back, grinning. "Might as well be useful." Emma rolled her eyes, but deep down she was touched. She had never had someone look out for her before. Liam also noticed the state of Emma's tiny apartment, the leaking faucet, the loose door hinges, the broken heater. One evening, Emma came home from work exhausted, only to find Liam crouched on the floor, tightening the screws on one of the chairs. "What are you doing now?" she asked, crossing her arms. He glanced up, a smudge of grease on his cheek. "Fixing this before it collapses and sends you flying across the room." She snorted. "I've sat on that chair for years and it hasn't betrayed me yet." "Well, consider me your personal handyman." He smirked. "I might not remember my past, but I'm pretty sure I wasn't completely useless." Emma shook her head, but her heart swelled with something unspoken. It was in the little things, the way he made her laugh, the way he never let her carry heavy groceries alone, the way he instinctively reached for her hand when they crossed a busy street. She was falling for him. And Liam? He had already fallen. The air between them shifted. It was in the way their fingers brushed when passing a cup of tea, the way his eyes lingered on her when she wasn't looking, the way her laughter was quickly becoming his favorite sound. One evening, as they sat on the rooftop of the shelter staring at the city lights, Liam turned to her. "You ever think about what's next?" he asked. Emma exhaled, hugging her knees to her chest. "I don't know. I've spent so much time just surviving, I never really thought about the future." Liam studied her. "You deserve more than just surviving, Emma." Her breath hitched at the way he said her name, like it was something sacred, and for the first time in her life she wondered, could she have more? Could she have him? She looked at Liam, this stranger-turned-companion, this man who had become her closest friend. She was terrified of what she was feeling, but even more terrified of losing him. Little did she know Liam was thinking the exact same thing, but fate had other plans, because while their love was quietly blooming, the past Liam had forgotten was about to come crashing back into their lives. The city hummed softly in the distance, but up here, on the rooftop of the small shelter, the world felt peaceful. The sky stretched endlessly above them, a sea of dark velvet dotted with a million glowing stars. Emma sat with her legs crossed, her arms wrapped around herself to keep warm. Liam sat beside her, close enough that she could feel his presence, but not so close that their bodies touched. The air between them was charged with something unspoken, something delicate yet powerful. She exhaled, her breath visible in the crisp night air. "I used to come up here when I was a kid," she admitted, "back when things were simpler." Liam turned to her, intrigued. "Before your parents—" He trailed off, not wanting to reopen old wounds. Emma nodded, offering a small, sad smile. "Yeah. My dad used to say that if you stare at the stars long enough, you'll find answers to all your questions." Liam leaned back on his elbows, gazing up. "Think it works?" She shrugged. "Haven't found my answers yet." Silence settled over them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was filled with quiet understanding, with a weight of unsaid things. Then Liam spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't remember my past, Emma, but I know one thing for sure." She turned to him, waiting. "I was never this happy before." Her heart skipped a beat. "Liam." He shook his head, his gaze locked onto hers. "I don't know who I was, what I did, or if there's someone out there looking for me. But right now, none of that matters. The only thing that matters is this." He reached for her hand, his fingers brushing against hers, hesitant at first, giving her the choice to pull away. She didn't. Instead, she curled her fingers around his, her touch soft yet firm. Liam swallowed hard, his voice thick with emotion. "You took in a complete stranger. You gave me a place to heal, to feel human again. And somehow in all of this, you became my reason to wake up every morning." Tears pricked Emma's eyes, but she blinked them away. "You're not just a stranger anymore, Liam. You're everything to me." His grip tightened around her hand. "I don't know what my future holds, but I know I want you in it. Always." Emma's breath hitched. No one had ever promised her forever before. No one had ever even stayed. Liam lifted his free hand, gently tucking a stray lock of hair behind her ear. His fingers lingered, tracing the soft curve of her cheek. "Can I—" he started, but she didn't let him finish. She leaned in, closing the space between them, and pressed her lips to his. The moment their lips met, it was as if the universe aligned. It wasn't just a kiss. It was a promise, a confession, a silent vow that no matter what happened next, they had this. The stars shimmered above them, but Emma and Liam only saw each other. For the first time in her life, Emma wasn't alone. And for the first time in his, Liam felt like he had finally found where he belonged. But fate had a cruel sense of timing, because while they shared their first kiss under the stars, the past Liam had forgotten was already on its way to find him. The morning started like any other. Emma and Liam walked hand in hand down the bustling city streets, sharing quiet smiles and stolen glances. The air between them had changed since that night under the stars. It was lighter, warmer, filled with unspoken promises.
For once in her life, Emma wasn't just surviving. She was living. But fate had a way of rewriting stories when you least expected it. They had stopped outside a small grocery store, picking out fresh bread when Liam felt it. A strange pull, like he was being watched. At first he ignored it. But then, "Sir?" The voice was hesitant, uncertain, but it sent a chill down Liam's spine. He turned, and standing a few feet away was a man in a crisp black uniform, a hotel security guard. Liam frowned. "Do I know you?" The guard's eyes widened. "Sir, it's you. It's really you." Emma looked between them, confused. "Who?" The guard took a step closer, pulling out his phone with trembling fingers. "Liam Sinclair." He turned the screen toward them, revealing a news article. "Missing billionaire CEO, Liam Sinclair, feared dead. After mysterious disappearance." Emma's heart stopped.
The world blurred as she stared at the image in the article. A perfectly groomed man in an expensive suit, his gray eyes sharp, confident, powerful. Liam. Number, not just Liam. Liam Sinclair. Her Liam was a billionaire. Her Liam was the CEO of Sinclair Enterprises, a name she had seen on towering skyscrapers but never thought twice about. Her Liam wasn't just a lost stranger. He belonged to a world that was nothing like hers. Liam took the phone, his hands tightening around it as the pieces of his past slammed into him all at once. Boardrooms, flashing cameras, a luxury penthouse, contracts worth millions. He staggered back. Memories flooded in. The accident, the betrayal, the reason he had been in that alley in the first place. He lifted his eyes to Emma, and what he saw broke him. Hurt, shock, fear. "Emma," he started, his voice shaking. But she took a step back. "Is this real?" she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. Liam swallowed hard. I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know." The security guard was already speaking into his earpiece, calling someone who had been searching for Liam for weeks. Emma's chest ached. Everything they had built, everything they had shared, was it all a lie? She had fallen in love with a man who had nothing, but he had everything. And now that world was coming to take him back. The air in Emma's tiny apartment felt heavier than ever before. The space that once held warmth and laughter now felt suffocating, filled with unspoken words and an unbearable silence. Emma sat on the edge of her bed, hands trembling in her lap. The image of the news article still burned in her mind. Liam Sinclair, billionaire CEO, heir to an empire. Not just Liam. Not the man who made her laugh with his terrible pancakes. Not the man who fixed her broken chair, walked her home, and kissed her under the stars. She felt sick. She had fallen in love with a man she thought she understood. But he wasn't that man. And the worst part? He hadn't even known it either. A soft knock at the door made her flinch. She knew who it was before she even turned the knob. Liam stood there, his face unreadable, a mix of hope and fear clouding his stormy gray eyes. "Emma," he breathed, stepping inside. "Please talk to me." She swallowed hard, hugging her arms around herself. What is there to say? Liam ran a hand through his hair, exhaling shakily. "I didn't know, Emma. I swear to you I didn't remember any of it. I wasn't lying to you." She forced a hollow laugh. "No, you weren't. But that doesn't change what's real now, does it?" Liam took a step closer, his voice desperate. "What's real is us. What we have." Emma shook her head, her throat tight. "Liam, you are a billionaire. You belong to a world I can't even imagine. And me? I don't belong anywhere near that life." His expression shattered. "Don't say that." She turned away, blinking back tears. "You were lost, Liam. Broken. You didn't have anything, so it was easy for you to think we was real. But now you have everything again. How do I know what we had wasn't just a moment of weakness?"
Liam reached for her hands, his touch warm, familiar. But this time it burned. "Emma, don't do this," he pleaded. "I love you. That has nothing to do with money, with my past, with anything but you." Her chest ached at his words. She wanted to believe him. But how could she? She had spent her whole life struggling to survive, scraping by with nothing but her own will to keep her going. She had never felt like enough for anyone. And now she was standing in front of a man who had the entire world at his feet. A man who could have anyone. Tears slipped down her cheeks as she whispered, "You'll wake up one day and realize this was just a dream, Liam. That you don't belong here. That we don't make sense." Liam cupped her face, his touch gentle but desperate. "Emma, I don't care about any of that. I care about you. You are my home." A sob caught in her throat, and for a moment she almost let herself believe him. But reality was cruel, and Emma knew fairy tales weren't meant for girls like her. So, with a shaking breath, she stepped back, out of his arms, out of his reach. "I can't do this, Liam." His face crumbled. "Emma, please." But she shook her head, blinking away the pain. "You need to go back to your life." Liam's hands clenched into fists at his sides. "Not without you." Her heart cracked at the raw emotion in his voice, but she knew she was just a girl from nowhere, and he was a man the world wouldn't let go of. So she turned away, and Liam Sinclair, the billionaire CEO, left the only home he had ever truly known. Liam Sinclair had everything: power, wealth, influence.
But none of it mattered anymore. Because the one thing he wanted, the one person he needed, had walked away. The moment he stepped back into the towering glass walls of Sinclair Enterprises, the weight of his old life crashed down on him. Reporters swarmed him, cameras flashing as questions were hurled his way. "Mr. Sinclair, where have you been? Did someone kidnap you? What happens to the company now?" But Liam didn't care. He ignored them, pushing past his team of executives, past the board members who were too shocked to speak, straight into his office. The space was massive, luxurious, designed for a man who commanded the world. But it felt empty. His assistant, Claire, hesitated at the door. "Sir, the media is demanding a statement. Should I—" "No." His voice was sharp, but his hands were shaking. "Not now." Claire studied him for a moment, concern flickering in her eyes. "Sir, is something wrong?" Everything was wrong. But he couldn't explain it to anyone, because no one would understand why a billionaire CEO was sitting at his desk, staring at the only thing that mattered: a crumpled napkin with a handwritten note from Emma. "Don't forget to smile today. Even rich guys need happiness too." He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling shakily. He had to find her. For weeks, Liam tried everything. He went back to the shelter, but Emma was gone. He searched through the city, asking anyone who might have known her. No one had answers. He sent flowers to her last known address. They came back unopened. He donated to the shelter she loved, hoping she'd see and come to him. She never did. Liam had spent his life building empires, closing billion-dollar deals, getting anything he wanted. But for the first time, he was powerless. Because Emma didn't want his money. She wanted love. And she didn't believe he truly loved her. That realization nearly destroyed him. One evening, after another day of meaningless meetings and exhausting questions, Liam stepped into a small cafe. The kind of place he wouldn't have noticed before. He just wanted a moment of silence. And then he saw her. Emma. She stood behind the counter, her hair pulled back, wearing a faded apron over her clothes. She was more beautiful than he remembered. But when their eyes met, her expression froze. For a moment, neither of them moved. The entire world faded, leaving only them. Then Emma turned away, rushing to the back of the cafe. Number not again. Liam pushed forward, his heart pounding. "Emma!" She didn't stop, So he followed. He found her in the small storeroom, her hands gripping the counter as if she was trying to steady herself. "Please, Liam," she whispered, not turning around. "Don't do this." His chest ached at the pain in her voice. "I have to." Emma finally turned, her eyes glassy with unshed tears. "Why? Why are you here?" Liam stepped closer, his voice raw. "Because I love you." Her breath hitched. "No, Liam. You love the idea of me. The girl who saved you when you had nothing. The girl who—" "No." His voice was firm, unwavering. "I love you, Emma. The woman who never hesitated to help a stranger. The woman who made me laugh when I didn't even remember who I was. The woman who gave me a home when I had nowhere to go." Tears slipped down her cheeks, but she shook her head. "Liam, your world. I don't fit in it." Liam took her hands, pressing them against his chest, letting her feel his heartbeat. "Then I'll leave it behind. I don't care about the money, the company, any of it. None of it means anything without you." Emma's lips parted, her breath uneven. "Tell me you don't love me," Liam whispered. "Look me in the eyes and say it, and I'll walk away forever." Silence. A battle raged behind Emma's eyes. Fear, love, hope. Then, "I can't." Liam let out a shaky laugh, relief washing over him. "Then stop running." Emma swallowed hard. "Liam, I'm scared." He cupped her face gently, his thumb wiping away a stray tear. "So am I. But love isn't about being fearless. It's about choosing each other, even when it's terrifying." Emma let out a broken laugh, her walls crumbling. "You're really not going to give up, are you?" Liam smirked. "Not a chance." And when she finally threw her arms around him, holding on to him like he was her home, he knew he had finally won the only battle that truly mattered. For a moment, everything felt perfect. Emma had finally let down her walls, letting Liam in. Their love felt stronger than ever, unshaken by status, wealth, or fear. But fate wasn't done testing them. It happened at a high-end charity gala, Liam's first event back in the public eye. Emma hadn't wanted to go, but Liam had insisted. "You're my world, Emma. I want everyone to know." She had tried to blend in, wearing a borrowed dress, her hair styled in soft curls. But no matter how hard she tried, she didn't belong. And soon the whispers started. "She's just using him. Look at her, so desperate to fit in. I heard she was a nobody before she found him. Gold digger, she's only here for his money." Emma felt the words like knives to her heart. She gripped her glass tightly, forcing herself to breathe. They didn't know her. But then, she's ruining him. He was the most powerful CEO before she came along. Now, he's a fool in love with a girl from the streets. The words came from a group of investors, Liam's business partners. And Emma felt her heart shatter. She turned, her vision blurring. That was when she saw Liam. He was across the room, laughing with some executives, oblivious to the poison being whispered around her. She wanted to run to him. But she couldn't. Because they were right. She was ruining him. Liam had worked his whole life to build his empire, to be respected. But now? People looked at him with pity, as if his love for her was a weakness. Emma couldn't let that happen. Not to the man she loved. That night, while Liam was asleep, Emma packed a small bag. She wrote a single note, her tears smudging the ink. "I love you, Liam. But this world isn't mine. You deserve better. Be happy." Then she slipped out into the night, disappearing into the darkness. The moment Liam woke up and saw the empty bed, he knew. A sickening panic gripped his chest as he searched the apartment. "Emma?" No answer. His hand shook as he found the note on the table. And for the first time in years, Liam Sinclair broke. "No!" He slammed his fist against the wall, his breath ragged. His phone was in his hand in seconds. "Find her!" he ordered his security team. "I don't care what it takes. Find her." Days passed, then weeks, but Emma was gone, vanished. And Liam Sinclair, The man who once had everything had never felt more empty. Liam Sinclair had built skyscrapers, closed billion-dollar deals, and commanded the respect of the most powerful people in the world. But none of it mattered if Emma wasn't by his side. Days turned into weeks, weeks blurred into a month. Liam had searched everywhere, old shelters, cafes, even the streets where they first met. But Emma was nowhere to be found. The media speculated endlessly. Why did the CEO's mystery girlfriend vanish? Did Liam Sinclair's romance end in heartbreak? Was she just another gold digger who got caught? Liam didn't care about the rumors. But he refused to let Emma believe them. That's when he decided, if Emma wouldn't come to him, he would go to her, and he would make sure the entire world knew. At the next Sinclair Foundation Gala, a highly publicized event, Liam took the stage. Hundreds of reporters watched, cameras flashing. The elite of high society whispered as he approached the microphone, but Liam didn't care about them. He only cared about one person. Taking a deep breath, he spoke from his heart. I've spent my entire life building an empire, making money, gaining power. A murmur spread through the crowd. This wasn't the speech they expected. But none of that gave me what I truly needed. Liam's voice was raw, filled with emotion. I found the love of my life when I had nothing. And she still loved me, not for my name, not for my wealth, but for the man I was inside. Silence fell over the room. I don't care what anyone says, Liam declared, his voice unwavering. I don't care about status, expectations, or what the world thinks is acceptable. The only thing that matters to me is Emma, and I will find her. I will spend my entire life proving to her that my love isn't about circumstances. It's about her. A gasp rippled through the audience. Liam Sinclair, the most powerful man in the room, was standing there unguarded, vulnerable, a billionaire, begging for love. And when his words spread across the media, the world fell in love with their story. But only one person's reaction mattered to Liam, and she was still out there, somewhere, hiding from him. Liam's team scoured every corner of the city, but Emma wasn't in the city anymore. After weeks of searching, a lead finally came. A small countryside town, miles away from everything. Liam didn't hesitate. He got in his car and drove through the night, chasing the only thing that truly mattered. When he arrived, the town was quiet, the streets bathed in the soft glow of the morning sun. Then he saw her. She was standing outside a tiny bookstore, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear as she rearranged books in the window. His heart clenched. She looked peaceful, but there was sadness in her eyes, a shadow that hadn't been there before, because she missed him. She still loved him. Taking a deep breath, Liam stepped forward. The bell chimed softly as he entered. Emma looked up and froze. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Emma's eyes filled with tears. Liam. Liam exhaled, his voice rough with emotion. I found you. Emma shook her head, backing up. You shouldn't be here. But Liam only stepped closer, his entire soul in his eyes. I should be wherever you are. Emma's breath hitched. Liam, this isn't your world. You don't belong here. Liam let out a broken laugh. Emma, don't you get it? I don't belong anywhere if you're not with me. Tears slipped down her cheeks. I left so you could have the life you deserve. Liam cupped her face, his hands trembling. You are the life I deserve. Emma's lips parted, her walls beginning to crack. Liam took a deep breath, his final confession falling from his heart. I don't care about money, power, or what the world thinks. If I have to walk away from everything to be with you, I will, because none of it matters without you, Emma. Her tears spilled over, her entire body shaking. And then she threw herself into his arms. Liam caught her, holding her like she was the most precious thing in the world, because she was. I love you, Emma sobbed. I love you so much. Liam closed his eyes, pressing his lips against her hair. "And I will never stop loving you." The small town faded away. The whispers of doubt disappeared. In that moment, there was only them. And Liam Sinclair had finally won the greatest battle of his life, Emma's heart. Emma had spent her whole life running from pain, running from rejection, running from the idea that happiness could be hers. But Liam had chased her down, not with power or wealth, but with love. And now, standing in his arms, she finally understood. She didn't have to run anymore. Emma clung to Liam, her fingers gripping the fabric of his shirt like he might disappear if she let go. His strong arms wrapped around her, holding her together even as she trembled. "I was so afraid," she whispered, her voice breaking. Liam pressed his forehead against hers, his breath warm against her skin. "Afraid of what?" Emma swallowed hard. "Of being happy. Of believing that someone like you could love someone like me." Liam pulled back just enough to look into her eyes. His gaze held no doubt, no hesitation, only love. "You're not someone like you," he said softly. "You're Emma, the woman who saved me when I was nothing, the woman who made me laugh when I didn't even know who I was." Emma's heart pounded. "But your world, Liam, I don't fit in it." Liam cupped her face gently, his thumbs brushing away the tears on her cheeks. "Then we'll create our own world," he whispered. Emma's breath caught. "Liam." He smiled, soft but sure. "I don't want a life of luxury without love. I don't want boardrooms and power if it means losing you." Her lips parted, and Liam leaned closer, his voice raw with emotion. "I just want you." And in that moment, the last of Emma's fears crumbled. Because she finally saw the truth. Liam's love was real. Not because she had saved him. Not because she had been there in his weakest moment. Not because of fate or coincidence. But because he had chosen her. Again and again. No matter how much she had pushed him away. And this time, she was ready to choose him too. Emma let out a soft, broken laugh. "I've been so foolish, haven't I?" Liam smirked. "A little." She rolled her eyes, but he caught her chin gently, tilting her face up to his. "But I love you anyway." Emma's heart swelled, overflowing with warmth, with joy, with the kind of love she had never dared to dream of. Tears shimmered in her eyes, but this time they were tears of happiness. "I love you, Liam." A slow, breathtaking smile spread across his face. "Say it again." Emma laughed, standing on her tiptoes, her lips just a breath away from his. "I love you." And then he kissed her. Not just a kiss of passion, not just a kiss of longing, but a kiss of forever. The kind of kiss that promised no more running, no more fear, no more doubt, because love had finally won. Emma and Liam had fought through heartbreak, doubt, and fear, but in the end, love had conquered all. Now it was time to build something even greater, a future together. Instead of returning to a world of boardrooms and luxury, Liam made a decision that shocked the business world. He stepped down as CEO. Emma had gasped when he told her, but Liam had only smiled. "I've spent my whole life chasing success. Now I want to chase something that actually matters." And together, they built something beautiful. The Sinclair Hope Foundation was born, an organization dedicated to helping the homeless, struggling workers, and abandoned children. "We're building more than shelters," Liam had said during the opening ceremony. "We're building second chances." Emma stood beside him, her heart full as she watched people step into the center, people who had once been invisible to the world, just like she had been. And in that moment, she knew this was her purpose. Not just to love Liam, but to change lives with him. Because kindness was more valuable than money. And love was priceless. Months later, the world held its breath for the wedding of the year. But unlike the grand, extravagant affair people expected, Emma and Liam chose simplicity. A small chapel by the sea, close friends and the people they had helped. No flashing cameras, no gold-drip decorations, just love. Emma walked down the aisle in an elegant flowy dress, nothing flashy, just timeless. And at the end of the aisle, Liam stood waiting for her. His eyes held the same love, the same devotion that had never wavered. As she reached him, Liam took her hands, his touch warm and steady. "I never believed in fate," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "But then I met you." Emma smiled through her happy tears. "And I never believed I deserved love. But then I met you." The vows they exchanged weren't just words. They were promises. To never run from love again. To fight for each other always. To prove that kindness, love, and loyalty mattered more than wealth or status. And as they sealed their love with a kiss, the world finally understood. A poor girl's kindness had led to a billionaire's love. And that love was the richest thing of all. People across the world heard their story, not because of Liam's wealth, not because of Emma's humble beginnings, but because their love proved something powerful. Money fades, power shifts, but love remains. And sometimes the greatest riches in life come from a heart that chooses kindness,